Two more names are on their way out of the Trump administration. Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen is out after 16 months in the position. And it was announced today that Secret Service Director Randolph Tex Alice will be leaving as well. Now, the shakeup at the DHS comes amid months of controversy at the U.S. southern border and a fight over the funding for the border wall. But one certainty of the Trump administration may be turnover. So to talk about this and more, we have to bring in our 360 view from our political panel, civil rights attorney Robert Patillo and Ned Ryun, CEO of American Majority. Thank you so much for joining me, gentlemen.
Thanks, Scottie.
Okay, so Ned, there's such a thing as normal administration turnover. Then there is something called Trump turnover, and very few are leaving still on good terms with this president and those around him that are able to stay. I feel like we're watching Hunger Games. Do you think this is happening because of the vetting, or is it people that come in and their relationship turns sour over working together? Which one? Why do we continuously see this kind of problem?
Well, I would argue, Scottie, that perhaps some of the personnel decisions are being made by people that aren't necessarily simpatico with Trump, and especially Trump's base. So I think that has been an issue. I think it's been an issue from day one, and I've talked about this. I would also say, though, that there is something as accountability. Trump has a certain vision. He has certain priorities. It was not going well at the border, still not going well. There has to be accountability. So I'm not sure why somebody who's not doing their job should actually stay in their position. If the situation is getting worse at the border, and in fact it is. So I'm not really sure that you can actually say that this is unusual, because Trump's outside of the norm. He's not going to let people stay in positions that they're not actually performing and doing their jobs.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because, Robert, I have to ask you, the way this has all gone down, it hasn't been, did she quit? Was she fired? This is not the first time we've seen this type of pattern happen, and what it does every single time is it makes that person out to be a martyr for the Democrats or for that rally cry. So is Nielsen the new martyr for the Democrats because she supposedly was fighting Trump on border issues like family separation?
Well, what I think we see is the result of when you make political appointments, when you appoint people who aren't qualified for positions, people who don't have any history of serving in a certain position. We saw this with Jeff Sessions, we saw this with Flynn, we saw this with so many other people who left the administration. They weren't qualified for the position in the first place. And when they couldn't do the job, you saw the president go into a tailspin and then have to address it. And I do think Ms. Nielsen will become a martyr, as you put it, for many immigration advocates, because she did fight against child separation. She did fight against the conditions in some of the camps that immigrants were being placed into. She did push back on the administration when they wanted to tear gas people on the border. So because as she continues to make those stances and she chose that hill to die on, then of course I think she will find a great amount of support out there in the world, and she may be the next liberal media darling because of that. But I think what's more important is getting people who are right for those positions, people who have the knowledge base and the institutional understanding of how to do the job, putting them in position to actually affect change.
Well, and Ned, you're shaking your head on this, but I got to also ask, and you brought it up, should Ms. Nielsen be held fully accountable for the rise of migrants, considering the biggest battle has been between Trump and Congress not doing anything? So should she be taking the fall for all of this?
Well, I think there's enough blame to spread around, Scottie. Okay. I do think she is somewhat responsible. At the same time, I mean, we've gotten to this situation because of an unholy alliance between Democrats and Republicans. Democrats for political power, and let's face it, the Chamber of Commerce type Republicans for cheap labor. So this really has been something where both parties have gotten us into this situation, and now you have Donald Trump showing up and saying we're not going to accept the status quo. We're actually going to solve our problem on the southern border. We're actually going to have a real border where, as a sovereign nation, we get to decide who comes in or who doesn't come in. Again, those that come in legally, that's great. We are a nation of immigrants, but you can't be coming in illegally. And when Jay Johnson of the Obama administration is saying at 1,000 people being apprehended a day, that was a crisis, and we have 4,000 a day, this is a crisis. It has to be dealt with. And if people in both parties refuse to deal with it, I think they're going to face the consequences in 2020 when the American people say enough's enough. This is why we elected Donald Trump in 2016. This is why he'll be reelected in 2020. But Republicans and Democrats hopefully will pay for this at the ballot box in the next election.
Well, it's funny to bring up crisis because, Robert, a lot of people consider it to be a crisis at the White House right now, considering there is an acting Homeland Security Secretary, acting Secretary of Defense, acting Interior Secretary, and acting Chief of Staff. Why are none of these people actually confirmed, and why is that a problem for the Trump administration and, more importantly, the American people?
Well, the reason it is a problem because government requires stability. You know, Truman had the plaque on his desk saying the buck stops here, and that's how it is at each of these agencies. So when you don't know who's going to be the permanent director of an agency, then that creates instability and ineffectiveness throughout the organization. The reason that many of these people haven't been permanently decided upon is because he hasn't found people to nominate that can get through the Senate, they can get through a Senate confirmation process, and that's grinding the government into gridlock. We're now entering into the re-election campaign without a functioning and stable government in place. So he needs to get people in there who can get the job done. And just to address Ned's point about both parties being at fault for this is mainly Republicans at fault for this. Remember, there was a comprehensive immigration bill on the table in 2013 and 2015, and then even a compromise in 2018 that they refused to sign on to. So it's not 50-50 on this. It's about 60-40 Republicans at fault for this.
Okay, this is a conversation we will continue. We'll continue having this debate because both of you will come back on because we're going to continue to talk about the dysfunctioning function of this White House, Washington, D.C., and our entire country. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks, Scottie.
Thanks, Scottie.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.